Hello everybody, I'm extremely tired and welcome back to another video. Today we are here back in Pokemon Showdown. Now in the last video we covered defensive Pokemon, and in that video I did mention that there are like genres of defensive Pokemon. One of them being Clerics. Now as you can see on the screen here, it is really simple. Clerics are basically just defensive Pokemon like the defensive Pokemon we covered in that last video with the moves Wish and Heal Bell. Now, some quite notable ones that I've seen around are Chansey. Can't forget Chansey with its ungodly HP stat, which if you max out, leaves it on a healthy 704 HP, which is crazy. Obviously, it's got abysmal physical defense, but its special defense makes up for that. Now, if anything, I would not use Chansey as a cleric. I would use it as more of a special defensive wall, because 105 special defense isn't actually great in the grand scheme of things, since Pokemon like Clerics Shadow Rider, Clerics Ice Rider, and Fluttermane, stuff like that. They all kind of fall to a normal type, but still Chansey might still not be the best in terms of counters, since power creep is real and power creep catches up every single Pokemon. Apart from Incineroar, obviously, and Incineroar and those types of Pokemon will be covered in a different type of video. Anyway, some notable Clerics are, let's see, Umbreon, here we go. This is, I think, probably my favourite one. Heal Bell and Wish, definitely. Also it gets moves like Toxic, since it could play the part of a defensive Pokemon, as well as a Cleric. I think it's a pretty cool hybrid. So obviously it gets Protect as well, which means obviously that it can stall out with Toxic, and maybe you could interchange some of these. Like in theory, instead of Wish or Heal Bell, you could get Foul Play for some damage if you can't get Toxic off, which I imagine might be a little harder than you think if people have planned for it. Now, in terms of defenses, it has crazy ass defenses. 95 HP, which is actually pretty good, which leaves it on 331 when it's uninvested. If you don't want to invest in it at all, then that'd be fine, but obviously if you want max amount of defenses, then yeah, you'd want it. In terms of distributing defensive stats though, you don't really need to do much actually, so maybe if you did maybe like a good... I did explain in that last video that for defensive Pokemon, a good middle ground is 176 and 80. I think I did discuss using Umbreon in that video, but yeah, it is still definitely one of the best picks. Now in terms of its type, the Dark type doesn't resist much, except crucially resisting Ghost, because I think it's the only type that does resist Ghost, because I know Steel lost the resistances to Dark and Ghost in Gen 2. I think maybe, let's see now, Ghost. I'd have to pull up the type chart, but Chansey and Umbreon, they're pretty cool, pretty good, and they've got great stats. Now, other less famous, but these are probably the ones that come to mind once you think of Clerics, which is Pokemon like Florges, if you give it Heal Bell as well, and it actually learns Aroma Therapy as well, which is basically just the same thing as Heal Bell, just specialized, because you're probably not going to get Heal Bell on a Pokemon like, let's see, Comfey or Florges. Now, obviously, at first glance, its stats aren't actually great, but once you look a little closer, you'll see that 80 base HP is actually pretty good. You would want that maxed out, because in terms of Umbreon having base 95, it is great, but obviously you don't really have to invest in that. Base 80 is considerably worse, since that is a 10 stat point difference, or well, like a 17 stat point difference, but it still makes a massive difference. But obviously, if you come down to here, its special defense is astronomically high. So just like Chansey over here, it has great special defense, and you don't want it to wall the special attackers. But like I mentioned in that last video about defensive types, you don't want to go all in on your strongest defense, because if you see with Umbreon here, obviously at the 130 special defense, and honestly, even if I didn't invest in defense at all, it would still have its bases covered, since 110 is just amazing. But obviously you need to equal it out, because let's say for example, what does Florges speak to? Poison and Steel. Now, unless you're using Flash Cannon or maybe Sludge Wave, those are the only two special attacking moves I can think of that it's weak to. If you're using any physically attacking moves like Iron Head, which is popular amongst the Pokemon that outspeed Florges, and maybe if you use, let's see, maybe Poison Jab. I think with Poison Jab and maybe Gunk Shot, they're less accurate, and stronger ones, yeah, the stronger ones are less accurate, and the weaker ones you probably will not find yourself using. But yeah, if you did use any sort of physical attack, especially if it was super effective, you use something like Iron Head against this dude, for example, with, let's see now, this is testing my knowledge now, Rev Room, this dude, total counter. Because if it ever came that in a game where Florges and Rev Room are both allowed in VGC, and the power level is lower, obviously, because even though Florges has great special defense, it's still not going to hold its own against Pokemon like Fluttermane, Pokemon like Clerics, Shadow Rider, and both Clerics in general. Zacian is Amazonta, not as mainstream, but you know, Pokemon with crazy attack stats and crazy special defense stats that can be boosted with items. Yeah, you definitely don't want that. But Pokemon like Red Room, who have 119 in their base attack, and it gets moves like Shift Gear, gets moves like Iron Head, it gets moves like Gunk Shot. Yeah, you definitely would not want to be facing against something like Red Room with that crazy ass attack stat, because if you haven't invested in defense, if you have invested in defense, then you're probably maybe a little more well off, but even then you want to cover all your bases. So yeah, in terms of Clerics, that's really about it, and since this video is only 6 minutes long, we can go ahead and talk about the next genre of defensive Pokemon. So this is going to be a little quicker, but basically this next genre is utility Pokemon. Now utility Pokemon aren't aiming to be the most tanky, but they are aiming to like spread static conditions, they're aiming to clear hazards, they're aiming to give hazards, and they're also aiming to lower stats. Most notably, here with Sableye, it gets the ability Prankster. Now Prankster is one of the best abilities aside from maybe Intimidate, where obviously if you read what Prankster does, it has a +1 priority on every single move. For example, the most notable one is Fake Out, that is pretty mainstream. If someone used Fake Out, this Prankster would move first, and you could maybe get a burn off or something. Not that you'd actually use Fake Out against Sableye. I'm just remembering that it's a Ghost type, which means they won't actually be affected by that kind of stuff. But if you use moves like Thunder Wave and Will-O-Wisp and Toxic and Pain Split, which Pain Split basically what it does, it finds the median of you and your opponent's HP, and since Sableye has really low HP, you can definitely take advantage of this, because this thing, like for example, you put Sash with it, then it gets onto 1 HP, you use Pain Split, and you do basically half of any Pokemon's HP. Now, moving on to Mega Banner. Now, if you do remember, back in the day, it was way before I got back into VGC, I got into VGC maybe a few years ago, this was maybe like, what was it called, XY era. If you do remember, Wolfie, my idol, quite frankly, he used Mega Banner, but he didn't use any attacking moves. Now, what he did use was the same moves that we have for Sableye, which is Thunder Wave, Will-O-Wisp, Toxic, and Flame Spit. Now, if you, at first glance, you would think, wow, 165 attack, and he didn't use an attacking attack. What is the point? Until you realise this Pokemon also has Prankster upon Mega Evolution, which means that Banner was definitely in the circuit for being popular Pokemon at the time, and also Mega Banner being pretty cool to play around with. Now, let's talk about the head honcho of utility Pokemon, Incineroar. Now, obviously, prior to, I think it gained the hidden ability in Generation 8, but in Generation 7 it wasn't really that crazy until it gained this ability, Intimidate. Now, Pokemon like Scrafty, Pokemon like Hitmontop, they both got Intimidate, and that's what made them great. Now, with Incineroar, it has way better stats. 115 attack, amazing, you don't even need to invest in that. HP, 95, it's middling. Well, if you look at its defenses, 90 and 90. 90 and 90 is great because you could do 1,000,002 things with Incineroar. It can fill, basically Incineroar can fill the attacker role, like where it's a slow attacker. You could make it bulky with like maybe 120 in HP, 100 in both defenses. If you go 120 in, I guess, I don't know, trick the rest of the defenses, or maybe go all out in attack. Yeah, you could do that. 246 isn't actually great, but because of its great typing, it actually doesn't have that many weaknesses, which means, it has quite a few resistances, and it has, not that many weaknesses. I think this guy's only weak to rock, ground, and fighting. It's also weak to fairy, so it's weak to 4 things, but it has resistances to counter that. Now, obviously, not all this, like the ability and the stats, not all that makes it the absolute best, because maybe if this thing didn't have some of the moves I'm about to mention, then maybe it wouldn't be as mainstream. It has moves like Fake Out, it has moves like Parting Shot. Now, I didn't have this right off the bat either, because Parting Shot and Fake Out were 2 moves that got introduced after Gen 7, but now they have been added. If you look at this, Parting Shot loads the attack and special attack of a user of the opponent, and obviously Intimidate, which load the attack on switching. You could have some Pokemon like Scrafty or any Swords and Dance Pokemon. You could have that thing on flat attack if it used something like Swords and Dance, which is actually the fastest way to get your attack up. Now, Fake Out gets a Pokemon to flinch, which gives you momentum in terms of fighting, and it gives them it disheartens them basically. Like, they could disrupt their flow, disrupt their team, and obviously you can get moves like Toxic, I'm guessing. Yep, Toxic, and it gets moves like Flare Blitz, but maybe you could even use moves like Burning Jealousy, which has a 100% chance to burn a Pokemon that has had their stats raised, which is actually great for Swords Dance users. Or you could use Stomping Tantrum, where paired with Parting Shot or maybe Fake Out, well, not Parting Shot, Fake Out or maybe Parting Shot if you know they're immune to getting their stats lowered. If a move fails, this move does double damage, which is actually amazing in terms of Pokemon that you switch in to take a Fake Out or to like bait the Fake Out. That would be great. Now, lastly with Crobat, it is fast as hell. It has great HP. Defenses are kind of lacking, but you know, I guess you could still make it defensive. You wouldn't really use Crobat to be an attacker, but if you did want it to be attacker, I guess you could give it the choice band here, and its Nai would be increased by 50%, which means you'd get, I don't know, what is a 50% Nai, like 100 and something. What you'd give this thing is less attacking, like obviously you give it Brave Bird. I've won quite a few battles with just soloing Brave Bird Crobat, but you'd give it moves like Defog, you'd give it moves like, did it get Toxic Spikes? No, you give it moves like Toxic, you give it moves like maybe Spikes? No. It gets, oh wait, no. Obviously it gets U-Turn. Now, this is good for pivoting, this is good for pretty much everything under the sun, and with a base 130 attack, no, base 130 speed, it outspeeds literally everything in a metagame that isn't already boosted. With its 394. So yeah, that is Clerics, and that is utility Pokemon. If you did enjoy today's video, then please consider subscribing and liking for more videos just like this. We also cover Roblox videos if you come from a Pokemon standpoint and you're watching one of our videos for the first time. We're aiming for 200 subscribers by the end of October. We've got 170 right now, and right now it's the 10th, which means it's definitely likely. No, yeah, there's nothing much else said, and I'll catch you guys in the next video. Stay in good health, and goodbye.